In this week's episode of The Enthusiast, Comics Revue released their latest comic book cover, and we're going to be having a look at it on this week's episode of The Enthusiast. You're listening to The Enthusiast, the best podcast for Phantom fans. And in this week's Quick Fire News, we have the Quick Fire News segment. It is few publications are set to release The Phantom, issue number 1964, Collector's Replica Series number 38. The comic will reprint older issues from number 85, 84, and 83 from the year 1956, which would make it 9 years of issues still to be reprinted until few publications reaches that number one, the earliest, rarest Phantom comic to probably be reprinted by few publications. And coming up on this week's show, in the publisher news this week, Comics Revue, as I said, reveals new Mandrake the Magician cover. And I have two gripping, very, very special discussions this week. My first discussion will be about my story with Lightning Strikes Comics. And we also have another discussion on Phantom Comics and Slabs. Comics Revue in the past week have posted what the February cover of the magazine looks like, with Mandrake the Magician taking center stage of this month's cover. This month's cover was done by Reno Maniquis and is just another reminder of how good his artworks and covers can be. And you can now watch my show, The Enthusiast, on Anchor and Spotify, The Enthusiast, where the passion for the Phantom doesn't waver. New episodes weekly on Tuesdays, and I will also be putting a link to the podcast in the description down below. It's always down there for easy convenience. It's always down there for easy convenience. It's like it's down there all the time. My story with Lightning Strikes Comics, it started back in 2016, when the world wasn't as, when the world was a much easier time. No, but seriously, it started in 2016, when I first discovered my first Phantom comic. The Phantom issue number 1761 was first published in 2016 by few publications, and years after, I hadn't heard of Lightning Strikes Phantom comics, as I was just starting my collection of the Phantom comics. And even before I didn't know who Lightning Strikes Comics were, I hadn't even heard of... Now, we're getting serious here. I hadn't even heard of Chronicle Chamber, or I haven't even knew about the Phantom. Now, how big for myself to not even know who the Phantom was before this. Now, this is 2016, and obviously I'm still very, very young, and not even know what the Phantom is, not even know who he is, not even know how he is, even the 80-year-old history. Yes, in 2016 the Phantom turned 80 years old, and I discovered the Phantom on his 80th anniversary, which was it just should have been the time I discovered it. Just should have been the time I discovered the Phantom. And it was. And I think the first thing I remember hearing to do with a special event I think that was at the same year. I think the first thing I remember hearing to do with the special event that I didn't even know existed yet was Supernova Sydney. The first year I heard of Supernova Sydney was in 2017, and I went to it primarily to see a few publications, and I was so excited. I was so excited to see my favorite artist, Antonio Lemons, and on that time that I saw him, and I went to Supernova Sydney, he actually drew me a sketch cover, which I still think is one of the best things that I have in my collection because it's like, it's the Phantom, but he's waving at me. Yeah. How good was it? How good is it? Which Antonio Lemos is still number one in my books. For that reason, he's still number one for my books. He still does a lot of great Phantom artworks, a lot of great Phantom covers, and I could go on and on and on about how great he is. But in the meantime, we fast forward to 2019, where I again went to Supernova Sydney. Hasn't he changed? Hasn't he changed? And in Supernova Sydney, I went to Few Publications booth. Hasn't he changed? And I happened to stumble across something I hadn't seen before, what would turn out to be issue 4 from Lightning Strikes Comics. And I've got it here for you today. Yes, Bradley Kelly has something special for Phantom fans to look at. Isn't he good? Okay. This is the Lightning Strikes Phantom comic, issue number 4, and I got this in 2019 from Supernova Sydney, from Few Publications booth, and I think back in 2019, I don't think I knew how sought after these comics were going to be. Obviously, I've only got one of the issues from Lightning Strike Comics, and I didn't even know there was like 3 others until a couple of years later on when Few Publications would be selling them on their website. And seriously, I didn't get any of those issues. I was not fast enough. The fast enough did not get quickly in. And also, in that same year, Jeff Weigel, I saw Jeff Weigel was there, and I remember buying one of his prints, which happens to be in the background, which is still very, very awesome to this day. He also happened to sign my 80th Phantom anniversary book, which after those years, I got a lot of signatures with that in that book, and I've actually, hasn't he got even more stuff? Has he got even more stuff? Yes, he has, because I've got the book right here, and there is Jeff Weigel's signature, just there if you can see it. There is Jeff Weigel's signature, just there. And I think I'll take a picture. As well, and I think that in 2019, when I got that signature from Jeff Weigel, I was very, very excited for it. I had been a Phantom fan for 3 years straight. 3 years straight. He hadn't taken a break. 3 years straight. And I was so excited. I get so very goddamn excited when Supernova Sydney comes. And for me to get a signature of Jeff Weigel and to also get a print from him personally, I think that was very, very big. And fast forward to a few more years into the future, yes, we're going back to the future. And I would send a email to Lightning Strikes Comics to see if I could make a PDF they sent me into a video about a certain comic I say into audio mode, much like audiobooks you can listen to on the internet or from the Audible, but with images. And if you haven't watched that video just yet, there'll be some sort of card up here. I think there was 3 parts to that video, and I published all 3 of those within, every week. I think I was publishing a part of the Scarlet Sapphire series, and from that book, obviously. And I was publishing it, and I thought it was just one of the biggest moments of me being able to have a PDF. Having a PDF, I didn't even think, like when I was emailing Lightning Strikes Comics, I didn't even think it was going to be possible that I was going to be able to get a PDF of a book and from a series that's so sought after by phantom collectors all around the world that I didn't even think was going to stand a chance. I thought they were going to say, "Oh yeah, can't do that. Sorry, mate." But no, they actually gave me a PDF of the actual book. Like every single page is on that PDF, and obviously I can't really show it to anyone. I can't even share it to anyone. But because I made a video on it, I then sent that video in another email to them, and they must have liked it, because if they didn't like it, they'll probably ask me to take it down. But they obviously liked it, and kudos to Lightning Strikes Comics for letting me do that, because it was just I didn't even, for starters, as I'm going to say again, I didn't even think it was going to happen. I didn't even think the video was going to even get started. And it was just an idea that I threw out there, and it happened. Somehow it happened. Maybe I'm just a genuinely good bloke. I know I'm a good bloke. And you can now get 14% off on all things Hermes Press with the code Enthusiast 2022, all in one word. Whether you are looking for something new to read on a hard day's work, after a hard day's work, and you're just sitting down in your relaxing chair and you're just wanting to read something, or you're just trying to wait for something to turn up, like, hey, mail call. You can use the 14% off discount with Hermes Press to get 14% off with the code Enthusiast 2022, all in one word. And it's one of the biggest and best offerings that Phantom Cave Reviews has probably offered in the entire time that I've been making videos on YouTube. So if you want to use that, it's always available for Phantom fans to use. And as always, thank you, Hermes Press, for allowing me to do this. Phantom Comics and slabs. Now I'll be back. I've got something special.
Five minutes later.
Dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun. It's Mr. Hawkeye, but you can see his eyes. The transformation is complete. I am Mr. Walker. And I am here with your Phantom Comics and slabs. What are slabs? What are slabs? What are they? Google's definition says that the word slab means a large, thick, flat piece of stone or concrete, typically square or rectangle in shape, paving slabs. In comics, slab means to encapsulate a comic book in glass. But what does that mean if a Phantom comic goes into encapsulation? It pretty much means this. It's pretty much the same thing. And from all of this, we have a debate whether a Phantom comic, a comic in general, goes into a slab, and Mr. Walker dresses in a trench coat to discuss this. Thus, preserving its condition for however long it's encapsulated in glass or plastic, like a fossilized lost part of history. in the time gone by, the lost time, the lost part of history, a comic no greater than mankind can be encapsulated in glass. And Mr. Walker is here to solve that debate. Mr. Walker, the latest of Bradley Kelly. Or is he the shadow, the darkness in, and he hunts the darkness inside? No, he's just Mr. Walker, and he is just on this YouTube channel. My take on this is that if it's a really expensive comic book in the eons gone by, in the eons of time gone by, it wouldn't mount to mess with its condition, then it would make sense to try and preserve its natural condition. What happens if you want to look at it and you can't because it's encapsulated in plastic and you can't look at it? What happens? Why would you want to look at it and without doing more harm than good? Dun dun dun. The second point I'll make is that if it's a comic book made for reading and not as rare and not as gone by eons of time, and you want to have access to it all the time, then give yourself the opportunity to revisit the comic books or the story. And if it's a story that can happen into the future, if it's a story that may go missing, dun dun dun, you may still have the opportunity to go and make it logical to keep the comic in plastic with a board underneath it to keep it protected. Dun dun dun. And to finish off this segment, what if the comic is encapsulated, but you cannot touch it anymore? Or is it still encapsulated? There's the brain teaser for this week. And I am Brad Kelly. I'm Mr. Walker. I'm Brad Kelly, and this has been a really, really great. This has been how great? How good is this? How good? How good has this episode of The Enthusiast? What do you think of the latest Mandrake the Magician cover from Comics Revue? And if you enjoy Phantom Cave reviews and want to see more of Mr. Walker and Brad Kelly combinations, da-da-da-ding, da-da-da-ding. Hey, it's Brad Kelly, and you think of the latest Mandrake the Magician cover from Comics Revue. And if you enjoy Phantom Cave reviews, then subscribe to see more great videos like this, and maybe you might be able to see more of Mr. Walk. And as always, keep Phantom Caving, stay safe, and I'll be back with another episode of The Enthusiast next week.